got a question came in about the pinky, and it's a pretty common thing to have, called a problem, handicap, whatever. But basically, the pinky is kind of looking like that. It's kind of out of the picture, and I think one reason why it happens a lot is because a lot of guitarists will kind of ignore the pinky a lot, and playing pentatonics, they'll use like the first, usually just the first three fingers there, and instead of getting that pinky involved, because the pinky is, well, it's the weakest finger you have. So I think for a lot of self-taught people, the pinky gets ignored quite often because they don't have anyone telling them how important it is to make sure you utilize all four fingers. So how do you address the situation? How do you make that pinky stronger? How do you keep it from floating away so much? And even as long as I've been playing, I noticed that if anything's going to be flying away, it's always that pinky that keeps, taking off and wants to stay away. So one exercise you can do is one of the videos I made a while ago, where you're just using a chromatic scale and moving one finger at a time. Because when you do it like this, it teaches your hand to keep the fingers close to the fretboard. And that was a big thing for me when I started just using scales right after that, because then I noticed my hand was staying closer to the fretboard. And even the simple idea of being conscious of how far away your fingers are going from the fretboard, simply being aware of where your fingers are while you're playing. So another thing you can do, like if you're running your scales, is just really watch how far away your fingers go from the strings. Try and make a very conscious effort to keep them as close as possible. So most likely you want to do it real slow with the metronome, very gradually increase it. This might be a really good one to only increase by 1 beat per minute, because you're really trying to retrain your brain on how it tells your fingers what to do. So yeah, even if you're just going to do like pentatonic stuff, or something like that, to where maybe an exercise you just go like 5-8, 5-8, because you're just focusing on that pinky and how far away it goes. So you can do like further stretch like 5-9, and just really watch that pinky to make sure it doesn't go away. It doesn't fly off, and it's always like kind of ready to go. So just to recap that idea, take an exercise, whether it's a scale or the ones I just mentioned, like going 5 and 8 all the way up and back down, or 5 and 9 up and down. Just watch your fingers and make sure that they look like they're staying really close. Now, one idea that I've been meaning to work on, I haven't tried it yet, but that exercise I mentioned earlier, the chromatic one, where you're moving one finger at a time, I was actually thinking of doing it in a little bit different way, to where when you move, you actually have your fingers stay on the string itself. So let me see if I can get a close-up of what I'm talking about here. Ooh, I am not having much luck. There we go, that'll work. So, of course I can't pick it right now because of the way I'm holding the camera, but what I mean is when you go from one note to the next, have your fingers glide from one string to the next. You're going to have to go real slow at first, because, especially if you're not used to this, it's going to make it, it already makes it really difficult just thinking about, you can't have your fingers not touch a string. They have to glide from one string to the next. So my theory is, or my idea is, practicing this way will train your fingers to stay closer to the fretboard even more. Of course, I think it's easier to do it on the lower strings because of how thick they are, and you have more surface to glide from. I find the skinnier strings are a little bit more difficult to do. But same concept as the other video. there will be a link to it in the video description. But yeah, even like coming back down, I think that's even more difficult. You really want to try and keep those fingers still on the strings as you go. If you can get some string cleaner, like Fret Fast, I've used that in the past, and that's basically just like kind of greasing up your strings. I mean, it cleans them, and it's actually kind of helped bring some dead strings back to life a bit. And you know, if you have the strings greased up a bit with the fret cleaner, it'll make it easier to glide from one thing to the next. So that's an idea you can do. Obviously, if pinky is just the main concern, which it is in this video, you could kind of just do to where you're sliding around like that. Maybe just go like 5 and 8 and make sure that the first finger stays down and then the pinky stays down, and it's kind of just gliding on the strings. But if you're going to take that route, I say do all 4 fingers anyway, because it'll train your whole hand to stay as close to the fretboard as possible. Other things you can do just to work on pinky strength, maybe just do like on, for example, 7 and 8, you just work on doing hammer-on pull-off with just the pinky and with the 3rd finger, and then maybe move it down to the middle finger and pinky, and then 1st and pinky. So just stuff that really makes that pinky do a lot more work than it's used to will make, if you make your pinky do more work than it's used to, you will have more control over your pinky. So if you do a lot of pinky-based exercises like that one, so I'll go the other way this time. So you say like you're doing, your 1st is on 5, pinky's on 8, stuff like this. I think this would be a good one to do some of that volume training where you have, you know, maybe try and do it for a minute. Just try and do that for a whole minute. And then, you know, take a minute, break, and then for another minute, hold the 6th fret with your middle, pinky on 8, and just try that for a minute. And then take another minute break, and then ring finger on 7, pinky on 8, and try and do that for a minute. Doesn't really matter what frets you do. That's just an example, something that you could try. One last idea you can do. So, if anyone's been watching my videos, you should know, well, I hope you know, how much of an advocate I am of these, the wristbands. You wear these, especially if you wear all 3, your hand doesn't have much of a choice but to stay closer to the fretboard because everything's so confined when you're wearing the wristbands. So even just having those on will help train your hand to instinctively stay closer together on the fretboard. So hopefully these ideas will help get your pinky under control. Let me know if it does work out. If you have ideas of your own that you'd like to share, please do. And as always, if you have a question, please email me, and I will put a video together for you too. So thank you for watching, and hopefully this was helpful.